welcome to Stay for Dinner, a podcast of cooking, curiosity, and conversation. If you love cooking, hate cooking, have no idea how you even feel about cooking because you've never tried it before, congratulations, you are in the right place. I am DC Pierson. I am a comedian, an author, and an enthusiastic home cook, and I am very excited for today's episode. Today's episode being the second part of a two-part finale, potentially a season finale of this phase of the podcast, possibly a series finale. I'm so grateful for you if this is your first time listening in, if this is you've been listening in to episodes throughout. The podcast has been going for almost exactly a year now, a little more than a year, almost a year consistently, and then the past month or two been on kind of a break while I prepared these last couple of episodes to sort of put a punctuation mark at the end of it. It remains to be seen what that punctuation mark actually is, but I realized ultimately, that this podcast, which all podcasts are to one degree or another, and I knew this going in, but is a ton of work. I usually find things that I want to do and find ways to make them somehow just ever so slightly more work than maybe is the norm for that kind of thing, and that involves, shopping and doing a cooking segment and editing that and doing the whole thing. And when I first started trying to shop the show around to different networks and stuff, I like my refrain was like, well, as long as I don't have to do all that stuff, like that'll probably be great. Then I think the show's totally doable. And ultimately, had some great input from different networks and every place that it went, even if they ultimately said, this isn't really the right fit for us right now, or the podcast industry is really kind of like changing and growing, and Obama and Springsteen have a podcast, and so that kind of thing sort of sets the tone for the industry as a whole. Every place that it went, everybody that I talked to had kind of really good insights that ended up shaping and informing what the show ultimately became, even if that wasn't, even if it isn't going to go to infinity and beyond. I think that they all really, really helped and really sort of informed what it would become. And ultimately, I think when I went into saying, like, I think I gotta just kind of do this myself, I didn't think that I could do it myself because I didn't know how to edit a podcast. I didn't really know how to record a podcast. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And all I knew was, like, I've been on podcasts and I like to cook. And I think what I learned in the 40 plus weeks that I was doing it regularly, and then ultimately in the interim, and then in these last couple episodes, is like, I can do it. I realized that the thing that was between me and it being out in the world was just like, well, nobody else is going to do it. I'm going to do all that stuff. And I did all that stuff, and I did it pretty regularly for a while. And I think that's really cool. And I think that there were some good, a lot of really amazing conversations in there. And I know that people enjoyed it. People have expressed to me that they enjoyed it, that they got out of it what I was hoping that people would get out of it. And I think ultimately, weirdly, it was like a good fit for some people during this period of time. And it was a super good fit for me. I was realizing, like, I think this was my quarantine project. This was my Macbeth, and having that regularity and getting something out into the world every single week was really, really a really good anchor in this period of time. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for you for listening. And to bring things full circle, my guest today on the show was going to be my first ever guest on the podcast. She had some scheduling stuff come up, so she said, let's try again later. And then the later that it made sense to try again was literally at the end of the podcast instead. And I couldn't be happier to have her be the ultimate guest on the show. It's Nicole Byer. She is the best. She is the host of Nailed It on Netflix. She co-hosts Wipeout with John Cena. Cena? I don't know if I've ever said his name out loud before. How about that? Nicole is the best. I've known Nicole for a really long time through UCB stuff, and she is always the greatest. I mean, I think Nicole is just like, Nicole just makes people happy. She's super funny. Everything that comes out of her mouth is hilarious. She is an interesting, person with a ton of great insights, and she's a professional. And what she does professionally is be hilarious, and she was no less than that on the podcast. I had such an awesome time talking to Nicole. I think you will enjoy it, and I felt like it's we talk about Nailed It in the interview, and so it felt only fitting. And this also being, like I said, like the last episode. What do you have last? What comes last in a meal? Dessert. So we're gonna make dessert. I am making a recipe that when it came across my Twitter feed, I literally did, like, even though I was already looking at my screen, I managed to somehow do like that head whip that the guy in that famous meme is doing, where he's like walking with his companion, and then he's looking at another woman who's passing them, and then I did that head whip at this recipe. And it is the best brown butter cookies with Cadbury Mini Eggs by former guest of the show, Kirby Mekler, on her blog, Leisure Fan Club. This is such a cool looking recipe. I'm super excited to try it. And there will hopefully not be a Nailed It level disaster. I think I can achieve what I need to achieve in the time allotted, but hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So first things first. One thing I will say, seems like you can basically, like, this is just a really good brown butter sugar cookie recipe. And if you don't have Cadbury Mini Eggs, this is like a week after Easter when I'm recording this, so I was able to get some for cheap at the drugstore. But if by the time you're hearing this or get it together to make this recipe, they don't have Cadbury Mini Eggs out there, don't go spend too much money to buy them from someone shady on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. Just, she says you can use basically any shelled chocolate candy, like M&Ms would work great, she says. We chop up the Cadbury Mini Eggs, but she says if you're using just like regular M&Ms, or something smaller like that, you don't need to chop them up. And I am hoping that I am able to get more Cadbury Mini Eggs actually at the store, because Haley was saying, like, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do something with those Cadbury Mini Eggs that we got from the store. And she was like, how much do we need for the cookies? In a way that sort of made it clear, like, we should still have some regular loose old Cadbury Mini Eggs left over at the end of this process to eat, and I'm not sure we will. So CVS, Walgreens, your phone lines are going to be jammed for two reasons, potentially, not just looking for COVID vaccines, but also looking for the Cadbury Mini Egg hookup. So prepare for that. Before we get into this, quick check of my ingredients. Let's see here. 1 cup of butter, unsalted. I thought we had unsalted butter. It got used for a different purpose, so I found some salted butter, and I'm going to be using that, and the recipe calls for some extra salt, and I'm just going to leave that out. We'll just see how that goes. 1 3/4 cups of granulated sugar, got that. 1 large egg, got that. 1 large egg yolk. I already put the yolk of an egg into a little cup here on the side. But if you've never separated out an egg yolk before, it's really fun. I've never done it perfectly. I think I learned how to do it by watching Great British Baking Show. But basically, you just crack an egg and kind of pass the yolk between the two halves of the egg a bunch of times, and hopefully you don't break the yolk. I'm sure there's a less rustic, probably more efficient and foolproof way to do it, but I don't know how, so I did it. I broke the yolk a little bit, but by that time I just was able to spill it into the cup, and so it's all fine. It's going to end up in the same shape anyway. 1 teaspoon vanilla extract. I'm also going to use a pinch of almond extract, because Haley almost always puts a little almond extract in everything that she bakes, and she's a really good baker. And so I'm gonna use the wisdom of the ancients on that one, just a teeny tiny bit. 2 cups all-purpose flour. 1 teaspoon baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt. Like I said, I'm leaving that out, but if you're not using salted, already pre-salted butter, probably want to leave that in. And 8 ounces of Cadbury Mini Eggs. Got it. So let's start with step 1. Preheat the oven to 350. Guess what? Already did it. She says, line a large pan with parchment paper or your favorite baking mat. Have a baking mat in a large pan. So there you go. Step 2, brown your butter. She says to do this, that's the stovetop starting. To do this, place the butter in a small pan over medium-low heat. Let this go for a few minutes. So my pan is like really thin. And sometimes this burner gets a little strong, so I'm going to put it even down on low to start out with so that we don't just like scorch the butter out of the gate. Brown butter everything, really, is a half-decent personal philosophy if you're looking for one. Butter is melting. Something interesting that I kind of experienced in the process of figuring out, like, okay, I'm going to move on from the show, that I haven't always thought about stuff this way, but I thought about it and I found it informative. I found the thing in my head informative in terms of my decision-making process. I guess it's just thinking. I guess I'm just describing thinking. Was I realized, among other factors and considerations, that I was like, oh, okay, so, I don't make money on this show. The show's not really big enough to like sell advertisements in any kind of like structural way. It has a small and devoted following, but it doesn't, it's not at that level. And I basically kind of realized like, oh, I think, I don't think it's that it could never reach that level. There would be some episodes, and particularly if I hit a hot streak, that would have, really decent numbers, and they would be trending upward. And also, as you can imagine, this year of all years, it was exciting to look at a graph on a computer that didn't mean like, oh my God, this is horrible for humanity. And what I realized was like, oh, I think I basically, to get it to where I think it could go, I either need to I need to put in like, 150% more work into it, just in terms of like promotion and like so many podcasts I've done in the past year, like people that have had really long running shows, or even people that have, maybe it's a newer show, but they've done many in the past. They're just super duper organized and have like 4 episodes or more in the can at any given time. And they're like, okay, so this episode's probably good. You record it and you go like, and they go like, okay, this episode's going to come out, in June. And you're like, it's January. That's holy shit. That's amazing. And in my case, I had a little bit of that, but sometimes depending, it would be like, oh crap, I had so-and-so that I was going to record with over the weekend and now they can't do it. And, let's see here. What are we going to do? And never quite, fully got ahead of that and realized that it was like, okay, so if I am going to really formalize this, I'm going to have to put in like 150% more work. And I don't think I have the bandwidth to do that because there's other things and other avenues of my, career and my life that I want to push forward. I don't know if I'm doing that, I'm going like all in on this thing. And looked at it and went, I don't know if I want to do that exact thing at this exact time with this exact project. And then going like, okay, then I think I need to put 0% work into it. You know what I mean? It was sort of like, I guess a sort of a no half measures thing, if I can borrow from Breaking Bad, of realizing like, I think I either need to do this all the way or I need to not do this at all. And ultimately decided, I think, at least for the current moment, it's not doing it at all for right now. And I haven't done it at all for the past couple weeks. And I've gotten a lot of other stuff done, and then doing these couple of these last few episodes, finishing them, putting them together, I've realized like, right, this is a ton of work. But I was able to, in that moment, knowing that it's not forever and it's the last few I'm doing, really just kind of enjoy the process for what it is and stand in the grocery store, for a second with a really good mask on, of course, and just kind of go like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. Just this is for fun. This is fun. I'm buying stuff to make cookies to do on a podcast, to talk to Nicole Byer, and that's really cool. And I'm just grateful for what it has been, and it's cool. Yeah, yeah, I'm babbling a little bit because I feel a little emotional about it, honestly, as maybe you do right now if you're realizing that you're kind of moving on from certain things that have maybe sustained you during this time, and you're going like, okay, cool, that was what that was, on to the next thing. Thankfully, maybe it seems like the world is moving into a different phase that will allow me to do different stuff, and I'm not doing this thing anymore that functioned for me in a certain way, and there's a, it's bittersweet for sure. And it's taking me like way too long to melt this butter. I've just been gabbing. Turn it up a little bit. Actually, turn it up to medium-low as instructed. Finally, after several minutes, seeing the last of the solid butter disappear. Kind of don't know enough about it to know that if salted butter will brown in the same way. I hope so. And you can see all of the butter literally kind of clarifying, like what I believe are called the milk solids separating out, and you're just you have like sort of an oily yellow looking substance, liquidy substance, and then almost kind of a white froth. And I think that's the milk solids. And I think those are the things that ultimately turn brown, but we'll see. And usually in recipes, when you're browning butter, it talks about getting a nutty flavor. I haven't quite gotten there yet. I'm reading that, brown butter apparently not ideal for, or salted butter rather, not ideal for browning. I'm seeing words here like ruin the flavor, which we don't love. I'm starting to see I'm sort of swirling the pan and starting to get really hot. Not getting the usual nutty. I'm going to kind of let it brown and just see what happens with it. But just good to know. If I had it to do over again, I maybe would have sought out the usual trusty, old, reliable unsalted butter. So I'm seeing here in another source that you can brown brown salted butter, and I am seeing more sort of brown solids here, starting to get a smell change. Kind of still swirling it. It's extremely foamy in a way that I don't really associate with butter browning past a certain point, but the color's definitely changing. We've hit a kind of like golden color. I'm just going to let it go a little more. So this from Cooks Illustrated says that the salt gets coated in the browned milk solids, which adds bulk, so it appears to be sort of more of that brown milk solid that you ultimately want, that adds the flavor without necessarily adding extra, like you're not getting like bonus flavor from it. Hopefully you still get any of that flavor. We'll see. Okay, like I feel like it just flipped and I am starting to get some of that nutty smell. Smelling rich. The color's actually kind of nice. I feel like brown butter is too browned. Yeah, we're going to call that good. I'm getting a decent smell, and it says it's easier to burn as well. So I'm going to turn the heat off under that. Let that cool for a second while we go back to Kirby's recipe. So she says, while the butter cools, add the flour, baking soda, and salt to a medium-sized bowl and whisk to combine. So that is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And I managed to just get the most possible flour on my phone. Looks a little cocaine-y. Somebody's definitely done coke off their phone, right? If they haven't before, somebody's going to this summer. Flour's in there. Baking soda's in there. And not adding additional salt, as I mentioned. Maybe a little bit. Touch. Maybe I'll regret it. Cookies will be super salty. We'll see. Medium-sized bowl. Whisking to combine. She says, now is a good time to chop up your Cadbury Mini Eggs. Who could refuse? I think we're chopping up half, actually. So 4 ounces, half the bag. Whew. Not an easy chop. So I'm kind of trying to keep them from rolling around. And in doing that, I just am worried about getting my fingers in the way. Kind of gonna go, trying to go in a mass, and then ended up feeling like, I'm just sort of going egg by egg. And then now that they're all the eggs have been shattered to one degree or another, I'm going to go over them one more time. Get a little more shatterage. Next, cream together the brown butter and sugar. I like to use a stand mixer for this, she says. But using a hand mixer or whisk will work too. And add in 1 egg plus the yolk of another egg and the vanilla extract. So, and I am going to use a stand mixer. Haley uses it a ton. I don't take it out very often, but this feels like the occasion. Hey, it's me from the future. At this point, everything started super going south. I had to go get on a call. I thought this was going to take X amount of time, and now it's taking Y amount of time. And I'm thinking, I've done this show so much. It's the last episode of the show. You know, all of these thoughts are spinning. And then I had ultimately the fateful thought that will be familiar to anyone who does a podcast or a vlog or anything that involves you living some part of your actual life and also making entertainment out of it. I thought the fateful words, maybe this will be good for the show. Well, ironically, as I came to learn once I went to edit the show, I completely lost the audio. Hasn't happened to me very much doing the show. Fitting that it should happen in the final episode of the show. So yeah, so that you don't get to hear that, unfortunately. It would be good for the show, he thought, and a monkey's paw curled somewhere. So you don't get to hear that part, but I just figured, okay, I'm gonna have to start over again after I get off my call and try to figure out what happened and talk to Haley a little bit. So that's what I did, and that's what you'll hear right now. Okay, everything's going wrong. I wasn't even on the right mic there for a second, but now I am. I'm here with my baking consultant, Haley, who is holding a cat, Linus, who he also was part of the process because he was trying to eat the brown butter at every point. Yeah, but I had a dough disaster.
So first of all, just real quick, what type of cookies are you trying to make?
So they're these brown butter sugar cookies with the Cadbury eggs in them, and I feel like I first started to notice it was off when I put it in the stand mixer and I was creaming the brown butter and sugar, and in the very few times I've made cookies before and have had to like cream the butter and sugar together, it didn't have that texture. Like it kind of just made like bigger crystals or something, and then I just kind of plowed ahead anyway and added the flour and other stuff and just felt like, oh, it'll still be dough, and then it just kind of made a crumbly, really dry dough, and then I tried to add water to make it
what?
Yeah, to just make it kind of marry together a little more, just a little bit, and then it got too And then it had said, like, be careful not to overmix. And by this point, I felt like it was super overmixed. And then I also felt like maybe I had the wrong attachment because I had, like, the whisk attachment on. And I don't know if that was the right thing to use. And then it got too wet. And so I started adding more flour. And then I had to get on a call. And I just thought, I'm just going to throw the dough away.
That's probably right.
Okay, Linus is now pushing the empty butter box around the kitchen with his nose.
His solution is feed him the butter.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. Okay, I have a couple thoughts.
Yes.
And again, these are just instincts based on personal experience, not necessarily scientific certainty.
Right.
The two things I would say are, first off, usually I feel like when you're starting a cookie dough, in my experience, with the creaming the butter and the sugar together, the classic first step, I feel like you want usually the butter to be soft but not melted. And so if the butter had to be fully melted to be browned, my instinct would be to chill it after it's like browned, because you want the flavor of the toasty brown butter. I would say maybe chill it back to a more solid state from the liquid melted brown butter place before creaming it with the sugar.
Because she did have like a cooling step in there. She's like, take it off the heat to cool.
Yeah.
And then she's like, once cool, whatever. And I think I just thought like, well, it's not on the heat anymore. But it all happened pretty
But
fast.
it's not cool,
I didn't take the cool part literally.
I would.
Okay,
I would
yeah.
take the cool part literally. I would put it back in the fridge or something and let it change consistency.
Okay.
Because I think if it's liquid, it's gonna, the sugar is gonna like dissolve and get like a sugar scrub.
Gotcha. Yes, exactly. It looked like a little like, yeah, that's exactly
not
what it
gonna
looked
fluff
like.
up.
Like a facial sugar scrub.
Yeah. So my advice would be cool the butter back.
Okay.
Because then the butter will have a different consistency with the sugar and be able to get to that like whipped creamy place with it when you're creaming the butter. Again, like soft but not melty, but not like totally set.
Right.
I think that is probably the biggest thing I would imagine is a difference maker. And then the second thing I would say is I would use the paddle attachment on the stand mixer instead of the whisk.
Gotcha.
It probably doesn't make a giant difference, but I feel like the point of the whisk is to like introduce air in there, which I guess you're kind of probably doing when you're creaming it. But if it was like liquidy and crystally, it's probably too heavy to be able to really effectively introduce any air.
Gotcha.
So it probably wasn't doing much for you.
Great. Okay, and the paddle one is the one that looks like a little kind of
yeah, it's like a triangle, and then it has a like
it almost looks like the hood
across.
Ornament of a car or something.
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Looks like
Great.
a little Mercedes thing.
Great. Okay, perfect. How cool would that? We should start selling those for like people that have way too much money, and like paddle attachments for your stand mixer that look like luxury hood ornaments.
But would they be effective?
No, but these people don't care. They don't
Okay.
even use their thingy anyway. It doesn't matter. So bottom line, $1 billion idea, and I guess I should have actually followed the recipe when I said cool. I should have let it actually cool rather than just like, well, it's not actively on heat, so it must be cool.
Yeah.
Copy that. Okay,
Yeah.
Here we go. Trying again. All right. So after that consult, I did as instructed. I ended up putting the brown butter in the fridge for a while and then even into the freezer until it got really solid. Then I took it out again and creamed it into the sugar, and that seemed to go a lot better. And per Haley's instructions, I just went super slow and kind of let it do its own thing and let it really get homogeneous in between steps. And then now I have added in the flour. I've added in the mini chocolate eggs. And I think I may have gone too far again and let it get a little overmixed because it's a little bit crumbly, but I'm able to kind of make the balls with my hands and it to make the actual cookies. And that is going pretty good. Like I'm able to sort of compact them. We're on target here, I think. And I'm just making dough balls. She says you can use a cookie scoop. I don't have one of those. I feel like it might be a little on the crumbly side right now to use an ice cream scoop. One thing I'll give myself credit for is resisting adding water again. I think that's a cooking instinct that can sometimes work, but baking, obviously, we have to be a little more exact, so it seems like it's just a little more about patience. But I was kind of thinking about it earlier this morning when I was having this total meltdown and this thing wasn't going well. I was sort of like, oh, that's kind of, part of me was like really beating myself up, because it was like, you've been doing this show for how long now? And you can't, you're whatever, and things aren't going well, and you're getting flustered, and blah, 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 blah. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, oh, well, I don't really bake. You know what I mean? I'm holding myself to this weird standard of like, I'm supposed to be great at this. It's like, this is like the second, third batch of cookies I've ever made. And, it's not complicated, but it's not literally, just a normal Toll House chocolate chip cookie recipe that I've made before. It's a little more, you're making brown butter. It's a little more of a gourmet cookie. So I need to chill out a little bit more on myself, I think, is the answer. And I think that's cool because it's like, oh, I'm putting myself out of my comfort zone still after all this time of cooking and doing the podcast and doing this. And that's like, I was like, oh, is this like a bad note to end on? And it's like, no, I think that's an awesome note to end on. It's sort of going like, oh, I'm not just resting on my laurels. Sure, I can make a easy Nigella salt and vinegar potato, but I can also do something new that I'm not accustomed to, and that is cool and good. And I don't need to be a jerk to myself. Some of these are kind of different sizes. She said you can make about 6 to 9. I think I might end up with like 10. Don't want to get the sheet too crowded here, because I know they're going to spread for sure. Oh, see, this is why we really got to continue to read the recipe, folks. She says, place 6 to 9 cookies equidistant on your lined pan and bake for 12 to 14 minutes. They'll still seem a bit raw when you pull them out, but that's perfectly fine. When you take them out, slam them down on your stove or counter to knock the air out of them. Let cool a few minutes before transferring to a cooling rack. Repeat with the rest of the dough until it's all gone. Okay, that makes more sense. Wow, I'm all over the place. Making the cookies too big. So I'm going to do 9 smaller ones, and then I feel like I'm not as worried about them spreading all over the place. Reading comprehension. Relevant at any age. I swear that I did not think, oh, I'll have Nicole Byer on, and the fun part will be I'll totally screw up a baking project. It just worked out that way. Serendipity, I suppose. All right, now I have 9 much smaller dough balls here on the sheet, and going to press, like 1 or 2 eggs into the top of each. All right, here we go into the oven. Round 1. All right. Timer just went off, and gonna take it out, and this part I am super excited about. It says they may look a little dry, and that's okay, and that you take them out and slam them down on the counter or stovetop to knock some of the air out of them, and I'm looking forward to that. That sounds really fun, so let's do it. All right, that was fun. And as instructed, because now I'm choosing step 7 to start following the directions. I'm going to leave them to cool for a minute, just out on the counter, and let them cool a sec before moving them to a cooling tray, and then putting the next batch of cookies in the oven, repeating the process, and I think we've got the hang of it now. I like it. It is it's technically post-Easter by the calendar, but the Easter spirit abounds. I guess it's one of renewal and I'm trying again in this case in spite of just plain old not reading a very clear recipe. But the cookies look really good, and they smell really good, and they look, like she says, they look festive, and I'm excited about it. And I think that's it. I think that's the final cooking segment of the show in the books. Oh man, you have Nicole Byer on, and you kind of had a dramatic baking experience, and just like on that show, I think no matter what happens, it works out for the best. And enjoy this conversation with Nicole Byer. Well, Nicole Byer, thank you so much for joining me. Obviously, this is not a time where we could sit in the same space and do a podcast and share actual food. So all I can do is hope that the last thing that you had to eat was both delicious and satisfying.
Oh boy, here's a spoiler. It wasn't.
Oh, no. Dang, I'm sorry to hear that. What was it?
It's okay. So my roommate has to quarantine for a little bit, and then so like I don't have anybody to be like, that's a bad choice right now. So I was like, ooh, Burger King has Impossible burgers. I'm gonna order one of those. So I ordered an Impossible Whopper, and the first bite was like, this isn't great. It's like kind of cold. Why did you order fast food to your home? And then the third bite was like, no, this is a Whopper and I love it. And then the fourth bite was like, no, Nicole, you tricked yourself. This is like not okay. Why are you eating? You don't even like fast food, really. So yeah, that's the last thing I ate.
Have you had an Impossible Whopper before, or was this a first go round?
This is my first go around. I guess maybe it would have been good if I had it immediately. It doesn't travel well at all. Right. So I had it delivered. So I think maybe the magic was lost in the ride.
I feel like and I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, and maybe it already is and I just haven't experienced it, but you would think with like the rise of like delivery apps and like Uber Eats and all this stuff that like other places would have caught up to the like pizza place like hot bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do they give those to like Uber Eats drivers? I can't imagine they do. Maybe they do, but I would just, I think of like most delivery stuff as being like, if it's not a giant bag of Chinese food that is like full of styrofoam and just kind of is its own like tower of perpetual kind of keeping itself vaguely a little bit warm, then it's not pizza, it's not going to show up as warm as you need or want it to be.
Yeah, I agree, because Postmates drivers, DoorDash drivers, they don't even give them health insurance, so I doubt they're going to give them like a stay hot bag, you know?
So I guess we should say, if you're out there, if you're listening, Postmates executives, and you have to choose between health insurance and hot bags, we know
hot
that
bags,
you won't.
Please.
Oh, no. Okay, so this is now turning into a debate. This is now going to be like an on the issues debate where...
Imagine that was like my real stance. I was like, I don't really care if they're sick. I need my food hot.
At least that's more honest than being like, I actually just want the free market to take care of it. And if the food's hotter, more people will order the food, and then they can save it and buy their own health insurance for $1 million a month that doesn't do anything.
No, I'm fully like, all companies should give people health insurance. Like, the government should just give us, I think the government should give us health insurance. I think the government should give us free therapy, because everyone has trauma. And those are my big two.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there was one thing that I wanted to like really try to like push forward and advocate for of all of the things I care about, that would definitely be one, that we should all just get health insurance from.
Yeah, it's so wild that you don't. It's crazy.
It's so frustrating that we have like the most the government can do now is be like, we can make it illegal to not sell you health insurance. And by the way, the health insurance that you can get if you have to buy it yourself is obscenely expensive and doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I just, I fell down my stairs. Thank you. And I dislocated my ankle. Yes. And I broke my fibula. Okay. And I had screws put in my ankle, and the amount without insurance was $64,000. And I was like, wait a minute, what? What do you mean? And then it just like, it blew my mind that I was like, somebody would have to be like, oh, I either get surgery or like I live for the rest of my life. Like, that's so much money.
Yeah, it's truly insane. Anytime I see something like that, where it's just sort of like, oh, great, like if we didn't have insurance, think about the bullet that we would have just not dodged right now with whatever it is. That's nuts. Well, I'm glad you're okay and you were able to actually get it and had insurance and all that stuff. And I'm sorry you fell down the stairs. That's terrible. Are you somebody who, have you been like, this is a weird question, but I'm asking it from a place of like, I've never broken a bone. Are you somebody that's sort of like mixed it up and like broken a lot of bones in your life, or is this somewhat of a new experience for you?
So I used to fall down a lot in my early 20s, and I think it's because one of my legs is longer than the other, and then also I was drunk a lot, and I used to fall in snow a lot, and it doesn't snow in LA, so I guess I stopped falling when I moved here, but I'd never broken a bone. I sprained my ankle once when I fell down the stairs at this boy's house, and it didn't heal quickly because I had to keep working. I was working at Lane Bryant, didn't have insurance, didn't go to the doctor. It swelled up so fucking big.
Oh my gosh.
And I just wrapped an ace bandage around it for like 6 months and limped around Lane Bryant. And then I like told them, I was like, I have to wear sneakers. I can't like wear anything else. And then like after 3 months, they were like, Nicole, when will you be better? You have to look better. And I was like, I'm broken. So this is the first time I've actually broken something and then taken care of it.
So you basically had previously a sprain that like should have not taken on the magnitude of a major injury, but because Lane Bryant is a giant corporation and you didn't have insurance, it did.
Yeah. They should have sent me home. Like the minute they saw me limping the way I was with crutches, they should have been like, go home. But instead they were like, can you work 2 more hours? And I was like, for $750? Of course.
I think, wow, it's really crazy how many of society's ills that we have completely fallen backwards into in just the first 10 minutes of this podcast. Minimum wage, Medicare for all. It's just a fun little home cooking podcast. This is this is just what happens now. This is every episode of this podcast. It's just like within 15 minutes we are inevitably talking about like how much the world
I think it's because when you grow up you're like, what the fuck, why is everything so bad and how come no one told me,
right? And
like my parents were never like, this is bad out here. Like it was just like, we're gonna have a nice life for you. And now I'm just like, everything is really bad, everything is awful, and I hate it.
I wonder if that isn't why, speaking of just kind of like jumping from lily pad of terrible societal thing to lily pad of terrible societal thing, like I wonder if that isn't why so many baby boomers are into like QAnon and stuff.
Maybe.
Because I definitely got the feeling from my parents, and they're not, thankfully, like, well, they're not alive, but like, I don't think they would have been into QAnon if they were, but I guess it's good that I don't have to find out. But like, I wouldn't have, like, I definitely got the sense growing up that and granted, I had an extremely like comfortable suburban existence, but like, I got the sense from them that it's just sort of like, yeah, our parents' lives were better than or like were worse than our lives, and our lives are better than theirs, and then your life is going to be even better. And like, I do think, and again, I continue to have a very nice life, but just the feeling of sort of like, it's harder and weirder. And I feel like people that are maybe older, say, than like our like generation or two that were the generational cohort, don't like quite get it. And if they do get it, maybe it breaks their brain and they get into like lizard people conspiracies. It's like, wait, this isn't how it's supposed to work.
Maybe. I think you're onto something. My parents are also goodbye dead, but I don't think they would have been into QAnon, and that comforts me.
Isn't that? Yeah, that's sort of. I like that. It's this sort of a weird like absolving our not alive parents of ever having to be or like being into QAnon in the afterlife.
Yep, I'm really proud of my dead parents for not being in heaven, talking about QAnon. I'm really excited about that. QAnon is so interesting. I'm like, how did these baby boomers get to? Oh, is it because Facebook? I'm not on Facebook, so I don't see, I guess, what everyone else is seeing. I don't know.
I think even if you were still on Facebook, I don't think that you would be seeing the same Facebook as, say, a like over 50 like conservative lady that lives in Florida. You know what I mean? I just think it's like you're going to end, the algorithm is going to like pick you out and be like, oh, you're okay. I got to show you the stuff that says like Joe Biden is like a pedophile lizard person right this way, you know? I just think it wouldn't necessarily be the same Facebook, but it definitely does like happen to people, and people just like fall down that rabbit hole, for lack of a better word. I always think, like, when I read about it sometimes, I do think that some of it is not that like movies and TV are responsible, but when you see these conspiracy theories and you see what people think, just like what you would think of as being like quote unquote normal people out there think of as even being possible, where you're just like, this is like weird stuff that happens in the movie Blade. Like, this is not real stuff, but they're being like, I don't think, like, I don't understand what you think is like actually possible in the world, but that's like from movies and stuff. That stuff doesn't actually happen. But I guess other stuff that we would have said like only would happen in the movies has happened. So they're just going like, well, whatever, anything is possible. And rather than that being a sort of optimistic outlook of anything is possible, they're going like anything is possible, which means that like lizard people run the world. You know,
wild to be like lizards run. I don't know. I guess it's just, I don't know. I just keep watching videos of those Capitol in what is it called? The insurrection. I keep watching videos of those people being like, yeah, we're liberating America. And I'm like, from what? From what? I feel insane.
Yeah, I just want, I almost want for those people's sake, or not literally for those people, because I'm a little bit like, well, just kind of just those literal people, like, fuck them, you know, pretty much. But like for just in general, people that believe that style of thing or have like fallen down that rabbit hole, I just want to be like, you're being afraid of Joe Biden. Like, I can understand disagreeing with him. I can understand not liking him. I can definitely understand, but I just be like, you were just thinking like, he's going to be really bad for me, like politically. It's like, no, he's not. You're a comfortable person that could afford to fly yourself to the Capitol to like do a insurrection. Like, you will be fine. But I don't know. People are like lonely and sad and freaked out. And I don't know. It's a bummer. I don't know, man. I can't. Just like got into a cul-de-sac of being super depressed about the world.
Yeah, it's really hard to not be. Like when you go on Twitter every day and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is happening now. This is happening. I don't know. But let's talk about food.
Let's talk about. We started with Impossible Whoppers, and we got here. Where I would love to know, where does home cooking fit in or not fit into your life at the moment?
Okay, so it's okay. I do home cook. I do not like it. Cooking is strenuous. Cooking creates a mess that then you have to clean up, and then you have to like put food away. And then you have to take out the blender. It's just a lot. But I've been trying to cook more. So I get these purple carrot boxes every other week. And I like cook up my little vegan meal. And then I order pizza. There was 1 month where I had pizza every day for 2 weeks. It was not okay. But like, I really loved that time. And I think about it fondly. But I hurt my jaw because it was just like too much of the same kind of chewing, I guess.
It was like a repetitive stress pizza chewing injury.
Yeah. Like the left side of my jaw hurt so much. So then I switched to the right side to like, I don't know. Like I guess I chew on the sides of my mouth. I don't know if other people do that, but I guess I chew on my left side the most. And then I switched to the right side, and then my whole jaw hurt for a while. But yeah, it was a tough, I guess, 5 days. And then my roommate was like, you can stop eating pizza at any time. And I was like, can I?
Were you, was it pizza from different places, or were you like locked in, this is the pizza that I'm getting it every day?
I locked in. So my favorite pizza in LA is from a ghost kitchen.
Do tell.
So I found this place on Postmates called Gabriella's New York Pizza. And I was like, ooh, I love Gabriella's. Nom, 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 nom. And then I ordered from this place called Gio's. And I was like, oh, the pizza's the same as Gabriella's. And then I ordered from Gabriella's and it came in a Gio's box. And I was like, wait, what? And then I ordered from Gio's and it came in a pizza Aoki box. And then it came in a Happy Slice box. So then I was like, wait a minute, what are all these different boxes? So then I went online and it was like Steve Aoki has like ghost kitchens or something in LA. And then I couldn't really figure out where the location was. And I kept driving by it and I couldn't find a pizza place. And then I finally found it. It's in a strip mall and it just has a very tiny sign. I would say it's no bigger than like an 8x10 that says pizza and like no actual name for the restaurant. So that's my favorite pizza.
And it's owned by Steve Aoki?
I think so. Or he's got like shares or something in it. But yeah, I guess I could double check. I can look it up right now.
Isn't that, is there some part of you that feels like a caricature of the you that you knew in New York that's like, I live in LA now and my favorite pizza is a DJ's ghost kitchen?
Yeah, but he does a really good job and it's delicious.
I know. I want to try it. I wrote it. I literally wrote down Steve Aoki Ghost Kitchen Pizza. It's also like, isn't that such a wonderful, weird, like concept now that there is such a thing that's called a ghost kitchen and it's a phrase that has an actual meaning and it's not something from
literally insane that it's like, wait, so this like corporation is just like, what's the cheapest thing we can make? List it several different times on the same app so you will find it. And then we just that's it. Like you can't dine in, you can't do anything. We are fully for money. It's kind of wild.
But at least it's good. You know what I mean? Like I would feel a little more suspicious of it if it was like there's this thing on that's just like spam pizza, not the canned meat, but like just it's spamming these delivery sites with just like middle grade kind of only okay pizza. The fact that it's good somehow I'm like, it's fine then.
It's good for me. You might not like it. It is like a little chewy and there's no way to ask them to cook it longer because you cannot you can't ask for anything. They will not do any moderation or modifications. But I found the website. It says Pizza Aoki elevates traditional thin crust New York style pizza with its modern take on pizza dough and toppings. There's nothing modern. It's dough and toppings. The recipe uses a proprietary herb-infused dough. I swear to God, there's no herbs in this dough. A prime organic tomatoes. Sure, whatever. Creamy small batch mozzarella. No, it's from like Costco. Dried spices. There's not a spice on this pizza. And it's not what they're telling you. It is just truly in LA the best of the shit. Do you know what I mean? Like LA pizza is shitty. And
yes, I agree. And it is, I think what you've pinpointed is like something that we do miss in LA, which is like, you can get like New York style pizza, but it's always like, I feel like there's like, was it like Village Pizzeria or something in Larchmont or whatever, and it's like a pain in the ass. They don't deliver like a big radius. You have to go there and it's good, but it's like way overpriced. And I feel like you've hit upon like, this is what we were missing, is that sort of like, it is really, really good, but it's just like kind of shitty to pizza that you would get at just like literally pretty much any place in New York that you would just like stumble into. It
reminds me of, what is it? Two Brothers Pizza, the $2 slice pizza. It kind of reminds me of that, and I loved that pizza. It was like shitty New York pizza. So like Pizza Aoki, Gio's, Gabriella's, Happy Slice, whatever, is like shitty New York pizza, and it just does it for me.
It also feels like pizza party pizza. You know what I mean? When a place would get like
cheese.
Oh, which is great. Like just that feeling of knowing like there's something, I don't know. I get sometimes like, I don't know where it comes from. Like, but like wigged out about like, is there going to be enough food. I mean, maybe that's just gluttony, but there's something very psychologically comforting to me about somebody being like, don't worry, I'll order pizza. And then you see it in the corner and you're like, there's 5 fucking giant pizzas. And there's some part of me that's like, we're going to be okay. I can eat way too much pizza and it will be fine.
I mean, often when people are like, I'll order pizza, I fully am like, well, I should do the ordering because I know how much we should get. You'll never get enough. We're going to be hungry. It's an insane thought process.
Yeah, but there is something to like those specific foods. I feel like pizza, sushi, there's like a couple of different foods where I feel like you can really, I guess like too much is never enough is how I would put it. Like if somebody's ordering it, you just want to kind of be like, just make sure you get what feels like too much because that is the amount that will be right.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Pizza Aoki, I'm writing it down. This is exciting. Was it? And this was during the pandemic. I assume that you sort
this
of
was
got
during the pandemic that I discovered it. Fell in love with it. Still love it. I'll probably order it for the rest of my life.
Do you find that happens? Do you get like that thing where you go like, this is what works for me right now. I can eat this regularly. And until there's something in my brain that switches, this is what works.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but I'm fully a creature of habit. Like I watch the same things over and over again. I like reality shows because the format is the same and I don't have to get surprised. But then when I do deviate from the norm, like I watched You, and You is one of my favorite narrative shows. And I was like on the elliptical watching season 2, like overtly just going, what? No. What? Oh boy. Like out loud. And people were staring at me. And I was like, maybe this is why I don't like watching things that deviate from my schedule because I don't want these reactions and for people to be staring at me. But yeah, like I like Drag Race because I it's a formula I know. I'm not surprised. So yeah, I'm the same way with food.
There is a weird, like, I know what you mean, where there's a weird, like the idea of like watching, and it shouldn't be this way because I'm somebody who like writes and aspires to write for more like television, right? So I shouldn't feel this way. I should just be out there watching all the pilots and doing all the whatever. But sometimes the idea of watching like a pilot of a show, you know what I mean? It's just like I'm gonna have to meet all the new people and I'm gonna, like there's a energy deflation that comes from this idea of just like I'm gonna watch episode 1 of a new thing I haven't watched before. This, I guess, this is just the lamest thing to feel because like you're just sitting and watching it, but just the idea of that sometimes for me, especially if it's like at night and it's just like I don't want to watch anything new right now. I just want to like experience what I already know.
Yeah, and I had to watch all the Star Wars for the first time for my podcast with Lauren Lapkus, and I realized I like to know what's going on a lot of the time. So I think we were watching, so me and my roommate's John Milheiser. I don't know why I keep saying my roommate, not his name, but anyway, we were watching not Rogue One. So we were watching Rogue One, and like 5 minutes in, I kept being like, who are these people? What are they doing? Why are they here? Who is this? Wait, is she Princess Leia? And John finally was like, no, Nicole, these are different people. This has nothing to do with what you've seen already. These are fully different people. We have to watch it to see what happens. And I was like, oh, okay. And then not 2 minutes later, I was like, but who's him? And he was like, and I don't think I've seen a man angrier with me.
But you just want to, there's just a weird at sea feeling sometimes where you're like, I don't know what's going on. And I don't, it's also a feeling I feel like of like trust, right? Like when you watch Drag Race, you've seen it before. So you trust that like, I know the rhythms, I know the whatever. There's going to be a thing where it's like, somebody's going to say some passing comment and it might not make sense to me, but then there's going to be a voiceover where somebody's like, well, you have to understand blah, 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 blah. And then I used to work with her and I don't like her anymore. You're like, okay, I'm going to get full context. I'm going to get whatever. But I feel like if you're watching a type of thing that you don't really know very well or necessarily like, then it's just hard to trust that you're going to sort of get like taken care of by the show, how you want to be. I totally totally get that. So did that, but then like when Princess Leia actually did show up, spoiler alert, were you
Wait,
like,
did she show up
okay,
in
great?
Rogue One?
I think so.
I think she might have too.
Because it's like a weird, I think it was technically before Carrie Fisher had actually died, but they did do a like, it's young Princess Leia, and we are doing like computer smooth face on her to make it be like she's young, and it kind of works because it's like for one shot at the very end, but then it's like that weird uncanny valley thing.
Yeah, here's the thing. As soon as I saw the movie, I forgot about everything that happened. So I don't remember that part, but I believe you.
Thank you. And if you want, I'm sure that somebody just has a YouTube clip of like end of Rogue One, Princess Leia, computer smooth face that you can track down.
Yes, I'm sure I can. There's so many videos explaining stuff in Star Wars. And I was like, what? I shouldn't have to watch, supplemental entertainment to understand these movies.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that is a kind of like genre of YouTube video that I'm like, I understand why it exists, but I feel like if I ever actually open one, I somehow get upset because I feel like I'm like, you're ruining the magic of the movies or whatever, which is lame. Not to say Star Wars specifically, but just like in general. But I understand why they exist. And actually, now that I'm saying it, I'm realizing I would like to watch one about Tenet, the Christopher Nolan movie.
Oh boy, that one gave me a headache. I did not understand anything in the first 5 minutes, so I gave up.
And I think that's like one thing too that I sort of do miss about going to theaters is just being like kind of like you can walk out of a movie, but like kind of feeling committed in a certain way of like, I am going to watch this whole thing now because I'm here. Whereas when you're watching it at home, you can just be like, I'm done. This isn't hooking me.
Yeah. In theaters, I mean, you have my undivided attention more or less because I paid money. I'm sitting down. I've got my popcorn. I've got a friend. I can lean over and go, what happened? What did they just do? I'm truly like an old woman or like someone's mother every time a movie comes on. And I don't know why I'm like this.
I mean, because you want to enjoy the thing, and that's how you enjoy it. So I don't think that's unreasonable.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have there been things with Star Wars that you've been like, okay, this is something I actually do enjoy, or I look out for, or there's one character that I'm like, I like them, I like when they show up, or has it been pretty much just like straight through, this is not for me?
Well, I like Jar Jar, and everyone else hates Jar Jar. I think Jar Jar is so funny. He just like comes in, he's like goofy, he's like the comedic relief. Because I can't remember who said it on the podcast, but I agree with them. There is no Harrison Ford character in the first 3 movies.
Right.
So there isn't any like reluctant hero or like someone, throwing out, zingers or whatever. So for me, that's Jar Jar, and people hate Jar Jar.
You're like, Jar Jar's like the audience surrogate. He's just like, he's there, he's just doing his best, but he's kind of screwing up, and then it kind of works out always.
Yeah.
I mean, I think going into, also I had such a weird experience of that being like a kid who loved Star Wars, was like, oh shit, there's going to be new Star Wars. And also having a like younger sibling at the time and being like, I'm reading so much about this movie that I'm aware there's going to be a new character called Jar Jar. That's going to be for like my younger brother. And then like watching it and still being like, I still find myself not liking Jar Jar. But I think if I had just gone into it with a purely open mind, I think there's a chance that he could have, especially like if I was, I can never divorce myself from my initial weird, like sad nerd middle school reaction to those movies. I have zero objectivity. However, I have said many times to some friends of mine, I think we're eventually gonna get gritty, like Deadpool Jar Jar movie, like with all the Star Wars stuff they're doing. And whoever actually does that is going to make $1 bajillion. Like once we get true, like he's seen some shit, fucking like Rambo, PTSD, Jar Jar, I think. And now that I'm saying it, I'm realizing that violates everything that you like about Jar Jar. And so I'm realizing
but
I
think I would watch it. I think I would enjoy, because I do like Like I like the first Batman. I thought that was good. I was like, ooh, a gritty Batman. And I'm not a fan of the old movies at all. I think they're too fucking goofy. Also, I have not sat down and actually tried to watch one. I've seen bits and pieces. But yeah, I think I could get down with a grittier Jar Jar.
Also, though, I think Jar Jar is maybe the least gritty character in existence. So for him to go gritty, you wouldn't have to go very far, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I think maybe he might just have to, like, he doesn't get a parking space that he wants. And he's a little bit like, oh, shit, you know, like, and that I think for him is gritty.
That's a very funny description. He doesn't get a parking space that he wants.
Like, I imagine he's mostly just tooling around the suburbs of Naboo at this point. I would hope so. I would hope so, at least.
Have you ever freaked out because of a parking space?
I don't think I've ever like been like, oh crap, I wanted that parking space. This person's going here. I think I get like I don't deal well with being angry myself. And so I think sometimes if I'm in if I'm in like a situation like that where that's happening, I almost get more freaked out by the fact that I'm so mad about it, if that makes any sense. Like it goes very quickly from being like, I'm so mad at this person. Like I remember one time on the Trader Joe's on Hyperion, that's like a nightmare fucking parking lot.
Whoever designed that parking lot is how you say like they like pain. Or they like inflicting pain.
Like all of those buildings like that and the Gelsons, I literally think we're both maybe...
parking lot makes no sense. It's a little bit easier to navigate, but like truly makes no sense when you get there. You're like, this is not a treat. I should be able to just pull in, park my car, go shopping. But then I have to navigate, oh, I can't go this way, but I could go this way. But now there's 2 lanes I can go up and down. It's, oh, no, it really gets me going.
Yeah, no, it's the worst. I think mostly it's like, oh, these were never designed to accommodate this many people like living in this neighborhood. But I remember like my wife and I had parked down the block from the Trader Joe's at their like auxiliary parking lot. And we were like walking in and somebody was pulling into the other Trader Joe's parking lot and they were like honking at us. And that's when I realized, oh crap, we weren't supposed to go. Actually, we were supposed to like, we didn't have the walk signal or whatever the fuck. And then as the person who honked at us was pulling in, they like bottomed out because they had like a really low car. And so their car like scrapes the thing as they're pulling into the Trader Joe's parking lot. And I did a literal like Simpsons Nelson, like not literally, but like that in that spirit, like a true like, ha ha. And I was 34. Like where was this coming from? Why was I doing this? And just that kind of thing. Like when I actually manifest like that actually comes across where I'm just like, I'm mad at this person, even though I was in the wrong initially. Then their car got screwed up for kind of no fault of their own. And then I still feel like that's when I truly just am like, I just need to like sit somewhere by myself for a while. There's too much. Anytime I've ever expressed the slightest bit of that kind of like road ragey sort of whatever, you would think that it was like, I had turned into the Hulk or something, the way that I feel like I need to sort of like sequester myself and be like, I need to think about this. Are you somebody that, do you have like road rage or parking spot rage?
I do sometimes. I like to pretend that I'm going to like take a spot away from someone and then not do it. But there was this one time when I first moved to LA. I feel like when I first moved to LA, things were just so frustrating because I just didn't know how this city worked. And everything was just, it seemed more complicated and harder than it needed to be. And I went to the gym. I went to the LA Fitness on Sycamore and Hollywood, one of the worst gyms I think I've ever been to. And I parked my little Honda Civic. It's a 2-door Honda Civic. I parked it in like the compact spot. And this big minivan, while I was in the gym, parked next to me and blocked the driver's side door in. And then there was a truck on the other side of me. So I literally just couldn't open the doors. And I like shimmied on the passenger side, crawled over to the driver's seat, and then opened my door and slammed it into the other car and was screaming. And then a nice family was just staring at me as I did it. And I yelled at them, "You're watching a lady have a meltdown!" And then they scurried away. So yeah, I have rage in my car. I just don't understand. Like you're gonna park so close to somebody and you know they can't get in their car. That's so fucked up. I'll also leave people notes. I'll be like, you don't know how to fucking park. You're bad at this. I wish nothing for you and your family. Nothing, not good, not bad, nothing. So I have a little bit of road. It's subdued a little bit more now that I understand that people in LA are just fucking rude sometimes.
I remember so well the feeling that you're describing of like moving to LA and being like, okay, I know it's a car culture. I haven't driven in a long time. And then realizing like, wait a minute, it's a car culture that was created when cars were like way fucking smaller. Like they were literally just like little, like Henry Ford just strapped a thing onto like a little thing so you could tool around and like take your milk to town or whatever. And then cars just got like bigger and bigger, but there wasn't like more space in LA. So everything, I just remember this constant feeling of it being like a pair of ill-fitting shoes where you're just like, this should be fucking, there should be more space in this parking lot. If everybody drives everywhere, why is there no space? Why are there so many people? And just that feeling of like, yeah, just like claustrophobia almost. And just like, why is this so fucking hard? And I'm 90% sure that LA Fitness is the only gym in LA I've ever like belonged to, and it is awful. That is the worst. That's like it's truly the worst gym.
Fucking gym. The people who patronize the gym are the worst fucking people. If you're listening and you go to that gym, switch gyms because I'm talking about you. I got into a fight with a man there. I mean, it truly sounds like maybe I'm the problem. I'm the common denominator. But this man, he was, what was happening? Oh, there's like, so in the weight room, there's like this little hallway in the back that you're technically not supposed to work out in, but everyone works out in there anyway. And I was doing kettlebell swings with like not a kettlebell because they don't have kettlebells there. I was using just a weight. And this man just walked right in front of me and I went, Jesus Christ, because I almost hit him. And then he turned around and was like, you shouldn't be working out back here anyway. And I was like, sir, get a fucking grip, man. And he's like, what did you say to me? And I was like, get a fucking grip. And he's like, well, you need to come here more often because you're fat. And I was like, your soul's dark and dirty and I will hit you. And I was walking towards him with this weight in my hand. And then this lady was also working out on the floor. She's like, hey, just, you're okay. And I was like, I am okay. Yeah, so I almost murdered a man at that LA Fitness. I hate that LA Fitness.
There's too much vulnerability at the gym. You know what I mean? Yes. Like it's too fucking weird. Everybody is there they're either they feel way too confident and way too like, yeah, I'm in a groove, or they're like just being like, I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm trying to do something good for myself. I feel a certain, I'm trying to do, and then there's just, it's going to collide. There's too much. It's gross. It's bad. This is also just like my like kid who skipped PE and like literally did band in middle school because you didn't have to do PE coming out. Like, I'm like, I do exercise now, but I'm realizing I just have an aversion to like that entire environment. It's just, it's just too much
inviting. And then me personally as a fat lady, I'm like, everyone is judging me. And then people go, nobody's looking at you, nobody's judging you. And then you get on the elliptical and then someone who works at the gym goes, keep going, good job, thumbs up. And you're like, they are looking at me, this is awful.
The sort of like quote unquote positive reinforcement. Like I was talking to my wife Haley about this the other day, like that feeling of when somebody is, it's that thing where somebody, if you like, have like a new shirt and somebody at work or something is like, hey, new shirt or whatever. And you're like, I have to burn this shirt. I can never, whatever. Cause then you're like, them saying new shirt lets me know that I'm not getting away with only having 3 shirts. And I hate that. So even though this person ostensibly wasn't insulting me, there's just something about being observed in that way that is just inherently, ugh.
It really, it bothers me. I like a compliment, but like, you don't have to say new shirt. You could just be like, oh, I like that shirt. Or I don't know. I don't want to be watched. That's the thing. I don't want people to be like, ooh, that shirt's better than the shirt you were wearing 3 days ago. It's like, oh, then why were you looking at me 3 days ago?
I think that's a common thing for performers. And I think like that we want to be able to control the way that we are like observed You know what I mean? Like we sort of want to be in control of that. And then when people, I feel like, are sort of like observing us in a different way, there's a very much just like, no, I don't know. I want to be in control of when and where I am sort of looked at, and I want that control, and I want that whatever. So when somebody's just sort of like letting you know, like, hey, I see you just being a human, I definitely know the feeling of being like, no, this feels weird. I don't like this.
Yeah, I fully agree. Because it is nice to be in control of the narrative. But then when people are like, no, and you're like, no. Yeah, I love control. I think a lot of people love control more than we like to say.
I completely, 100% for sure. And there is a weird thing sometimes where you have to, because I 100% have control freaky tendencies, and there are times where you just want to be like, where you're like, okay, I know this is, if you're like, or like if you're in therapy or whatever, and you're being like, I know this is one of my control freaky things or whatever. And then there's a part of you that wants to be like, well, who wouldn't want to be in control if you could? You know what I mean? Like, who wouldn't want to sort of like, it doesn't have to be every situation, but just the feeling of being like, there's some part of me that doesn't like feeling like, oh shit, I'm like vulnerable, or I'm out of control, or something bad is going to happen to me that I can't control. So like, why wouldn't I want to be able to say like, no, thank you, no bad thing, please? You know, does that, and that's super fucking bad with the pandemic, I feel like. But speaking of things that you don't like, you were saying like you're getting better about like, you know, being in the kitchen, or you're at least like doing it. What are the things that have kind of like throughout history, like kept you out of it? What have been like the pet peeves? What are the things about it that you don't like, that you are you know, either having to confront right now, or just kind of being like, well, I'm just doing it anyway because it's something that I want to be doing right now?
I think the thing that has been a hindrance for me in the kitchen is I have ADHD. So I can go, like, if I don't, like, before I started taking medication, I would go to the grocery store, and if I didn't make a list, I would be in the grocery store being like, well, I think I need to buy at least one of everything. And then get home and be like, well, you bought one of everything that doesn't go together. You didn't buy anything that like makes one meal. So then I'd end up having to like order things anyway. And then if I ever made it back to the store to get the stuff that I actually needed, the like fruit or the vegetables would have rotted already. So that was like my big thing in New York. And also taking it up 6 flights of stairs was a fucking nightmare. And then out here, I started taking medication and realized I still need to have some sort of list. And I'll buy the stuff and then get overwhelmed before I make it, because I'm like, well, I don't actually know how to make it. I have like an idea of how to make it. And then I started doing the little boxes, and those give you directions. But then sometimes midway through, I'm like, well, why do they write so many words to tell me to boil this? And then I have a little meltdown. So it's a thing that I don't like, that I have to pay attention to, as opposed to like learning lines. I don't like learning lines, but the product of me learning my lines the night before is I don't hold up production. People say I'm nice to work with because I'm professional. I get the job done. I can improvise a little bit. And then when you see the finished product, you see all the work that went into it. With food, you put a lot of work into it and then you fucking eat it. And then there's nothing left. You shit it out. It's a lot of work for shit. So I think that's my like issue in the kitchen.
Yeah, there's just a weird like cost benefit analysis of just sort of like, I could either put a lot of time in my day into doing this thing that I'm then going to eat. And I would have this literally with Drag Race, where it'd be like, okay, Haley and I are going to like watch whatever the new season of Drag Race. We know we've been looking forward to it all week. Okay, Friday night, we're going to cook a whole big thing. And then like we start Drag Race, and I'm really engrossed in Drag Race. And it's like, wait, we just spent 90 minutes cooking this thing. And I eat way too fast too. And just turning around and going like, and then it's gone. And I was paying attention to the show, and it literally is like the title sequence kicks in, and I'm like, I ate it already. I was looking, and it is a little bit of a like a kid dropping their ice cream on the ground feeling of like, wait, it's gone. No, wait, what? I did a whole, you know what I mean? That like, I completely understand that. And truly, as like somebody who like hosts a cooking podcast, where especially like part of the thing is like trying to be like, and hey, even if you don't like being in the kitchen, there's this and there's that and it's great and there's whatever. And I do think there is something that we all, anyone who like likes to cook or likes food or likes whatever, it's like you do have to confront that literal, just like exactly what you said at a fundamental level. And it's gross, but it's true. Is just like, you are going to eat it, it will be gone, and then you will shit it out. Like that is, there's just like something weirdly, grossly kind of like mortality about that you have to like, that like everyone, whether they like cooking or not, or food or not, has to acknowledge at a certain point. Is like, it's, and there's something kind of, there can be something beautiful about that. Not the fact that it becomes shit, but just about the sort of like the temporary nature of it. But then also it's just sort of like, that can just be, if you're somebody where it's like, that can just be like, and then you order it and then it shows up and then you eat it and then you didn't put a bunch of your day into it otherwise. Cause I think if the process is not that inspiring, it's just not that inspiring.
Mm-hmm. My therapist, because I've been talking about my food issues with my therapist, because I'm like, I want to eat healthier, but like when I order delivery, what's the point of ordering healthy delivery? Tee. But she was like, when you cook, instead of watching it in front of the television, why don't you like set a nice table setting at the table and then eat it at the table? Maybe read a chapter of a book or like read a magazine. She's like, but don't be on your phone because that kind of like cheapens the experience. And I was like, okay. And then I did it once and I was just staring at the wall and John Millheiser was like, so what is it, wall time now? And I was like, oh no. But now I'm okay just eating, staring at the wall, looking out the window. But that makes cooking just like slightly better to be like, oh, I'm going to sit and eat it. And that's the one thing I'm doing. Even though I know it's going to be shit later, I'm like, I'm enjoying it. I'm like having fun. Food is exhausting.
It's 100%. Just the idea that you have to like, this is the treadmill nature of sort of like, you're going to make some someday and feed yourself and you still have to feed yourself again tomorrow. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There is a weird sort of like, I have to keep doing this kind of a thing, but I do like, there is something to that in terms of just the like, but I see both sides of it. I see both sides of the like, that's really nice. Just sit down and like read a book and whatever. And like, just kind of like you're taking the time and you're doing something nice for yourself and you're just being present with it. And then I also see the, what is it, wall time now of it, because there always just is that I think we all do like have that itchiness of like, I should be if I have a moment to do it, I should be like consuming something else as well. I should be like watching TV. I should be doing this, whatever. I should be reading this article that I want to read. I should be whatever. And then when you're doing that, there's even a further, or at least I don't want to speak for you, but I definitely get the itchy feeling of like, it has to be the exact right thing too. Is there something better I could be watching? Is there something better I could be doing? And
yeah, I get like that. It's very annoying.
That just like itchy sort of anxiety. You had mentioned cooking like vegan stuff and ordering an Impossible burger. Are you vegetarian or vegan? Where are you at with that?
So I am a vegan. Thank you. I've been a vegan since May of last year. But I do eat Kraft Ranch dressing that's not vegan. And I do eat cheese that's not vegan. And I do eat eggs that's definitely not vegan. But I do love the label vegan more than vegetarian. And then, I mean, I have had meat, I will say, 10 times since May, maybe 15, because I really love Howlin Rays. And every now and again, I'll have a crisis about whether they're going to survive the pandemic or not, which is just neither here nor there. It's a chicken sandwich, but I love them so much.
Oh, it's so good.
So.
Yeah, I think Howlin Ray's, I feel like, is the type of thing where it's like, if you were gonna eat meat as a vegan, it's like make it special. You know what I mean? Like make it Howlin Ray's, make it something that is really just like, this is a true special. It's just special. I don't know. I just
travels well.
It travels really well.
Yeah, like I've had it delivered several times, maybe like 5 or 6 times, and it truly each time that sandwich is so fucking good. I'll tell you what doesn't travel well. So I got, Petit Trois because
Sure.
they have my favorite like peppercorn steak sauce. And I was like, ooh, I should have one last steak before I become vegan again. So I ordered it and they don't deliver to me. So then I had to get I can't like drive right now because of my leg. It's my right leg that I injured. So I got a TaskRabbit to pick it up. And then the TaskRabbit, she just took so long. And then when it got here, it wasn't like warm enough. So I like reheated it. Truly not worth it. But I gotta say, the sauce was worth it. I have to figure out their recipe. I love French fries in like a peppercorn creamy, what is it, off poif sauce. It is my favorite thing in the whole world. I love the whole peppercorns in there. Oh, it's so fucking good. And then their butter's really good. That traveled well because it's butter.
Oh man, that sounds so good. And there is something about like I've definitely heard other vegetarian and vegan people say like a steakhouse is actually not that Petit Trois is a steakhouse, but like that steakhouses and is like are weirdly decent places to eat if you are vegan or vegetarian because the sides are always really good.
The sides
and, like,
are
sauces
so good. It's harder for vegans, but if you're vegetarian, ooh, baby, you got the mac and cheese, you got like cream spinach, you got cream corn, you have mashed potatoes, scallop potatoes, just so many yummy, yummy, yummy sides.
Oh, yeah, that's Have
you ever been to Mastro's?
I haven't. Is that in LA or New York?
Okay, so it's in LA. It is one of my favorite fucking restaurants. It is not my favorite restaurant because it's like delightfully good and you're like, oh my God. So I love people watching there. And last time I was there, I found a condom on the floor of the bar and I was delighted. And then you will always see a sex worker with her John there. And like, if you listen to the conversation, sometimes she'll be like, can I have 2 dinners? And you're like, yes, bitch, work him, work him, work him. And there'll be like live music of a woman who sings like kind of badly. And people talk over her. She gets louder. Once I was there with my friend Jacob and this 2 guys came in tracksuits, ordered 2, I think they each got porterhouses, ate it in silence, and then got up and left. And I was like, did they come from a murder or are they going to a murder? Because like they just seemed like they were doing something bad before they got there or they were going to do something bad after. The people watching there is so delightful, but also the sides are good. And then they have this shrimp and this scallop appetizer. I can't remember which one's better, but it's in this like garlic butter sauce that's like, oh my God, to fucking die for.
Ooh, that's just I do love a steakhouse. I like a steakhouse more than I like steak, I think. Like I really like a steak, but there's just something about it. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. And I just like the vibe. I love people who are okay, this will sound like I'm an asshole, but I really love people who find themselves to be very important, even if in the grand scheme of things they're not important. Like I love watching a table of people come in, ignore the hostess, be very loud, drop things on the floor, like be rude to other people. Like I just love watching the way people live in public. And I think during this pandemic, like that's something I've really missed. I love people watching. And then I like when people watch me because I'm always having a very nice time when I'm out. And then sometimes people will be like, wow, it seems like you're having the best time of your life. And I'm like, well, then what are you doing if you're not having the best time all the time?
Isn't that straight? That is something that's so great about going out to eat is like just that feeling of being like, okay, like we're here and maybe like we're kind of dressed up because it's a special occasion for us. And then other people are dressed up and they're kind of doing their thing, or we're all just at brunch and that people are doing that thing, or just whatever the different meals and occasions and types of restaurants are and the types of people is so, I totally missed that too. You're so, I really missed that.
And then like making new friends at restaurants. I was once at cafeteria in New York. This was like, I don't know, 3 a.m. It's open all night. And Sashir and I were eating, minding our own business. And this very drunk man who kept leaning over, talking with a mouth full of macaroni and cheese. It was like kind of gross. But like he ended up paying for our meal because he was just like, you guys look like you're having the most fun. And I'm just alone and da 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 da. And I was just like, I don't know, being in public is magic, and I really miss it.
Yeah, me too. I know, totally. Yeah, that man, that's great. That also feels very like this is cliche to say, but that feels very New York.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely very, very New York.
I feel like in New York, there's a weird, just kind of like a sense that it's like, okay, we can both be minor characters in each other's weird day, and it can just be, that can be it, and that's fine. Whereas in LA, it feels a little bit like either everybody is sort of like, I don't know you, I don't want to know you, we're just sort of like orbiting each other, or like we're going to have to be, you're a huge part of my life now, and there's no in between.
Yeah, I think people in LA are maybe more precious with their time because they can be, but then also in New York, you're precious with your time. I don't know. Like, people say New Yorkers aren't friendly and like New York is not a friendly town. I'm like, it's the most friendly fucking town, I think. I mean, I've been lost in New York and been like, I don't know where I'm going, and had people help me. But I feel like if I today were lost in LA and was like, excuse me, do you? I think someone would spit on me.
No, I completely, yeah, no, for sure. Somebody would be, it would just be a weird, like, I you know, maybe it's been this way since Manson. I don't know. I've been alive that long, but I do feel like there is a thing in LA. That's definitely another thing that I found to moving here is like, everybody is trying so hard to be like, it's chill, it's cool, it's LA, we're whatever. And the feeling of like desperation, like just beneath that is palpable. Everybody's a little on edge and everybody is like pretty freaked out. And that very much is the feeling. Whereas in New York, I don't know, it is like, it's a hustle, it's a bustle, it's a whatever, but like there is still a feeling of just kind of like, we're all in it together. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's an oversimplification, but I definitely felt that way. How has hosting a food show, has it changed your relationship to food at all?
Ish, I guess. I now more or less can distinguish between like, is this actually good, or is this over salted, or is it's like very sweet. I'm very sensitive to sweet things now. Like I prefer something savory now over something sweet, and it used to be the opposite way before I started hosting it. But I would just say like I taste food more, you know?
That makes sense. I mean, I guess just like it being part of your job to take that moment and be like, what's really going on here? How do I really like feel about this? Is it gross by the time it gets to you? Because don't they have to like photograph it first and do the sort of like glamour shots or whatever? Or is it usually pretty much like, okay, we're eating it like right after it comes out of the oven or whatever?
I don't think this like ruins the magic of it. So what happens is we go, stop, hands up, whatever. And then we go away for maybe like a 10-minute break while they are very kind to the contestants. If something at the stopping point hadn't fallen off the cake, they'll work to put it back on the cake. So it's only like really 10 minutes between them being done and us looking at it and tasting it. Because I think they do the beauty shots after we've tasted. No, they do it before. But it doesn't take that long. I would say it's like good. 10 minutes between them being done and us tasting it.
That's really nice. There's something so great about the idea that it's like, yeah, it's like a show about trying to do really hard stuff and you're probably going to screw it up somehow. But like, we don't want you to screw up in a way that's not going to be like fun for the camera and just like, oh yeah, we were putting it on a little rotating tray and then like the clown's nose fell off or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's nice. I like that.
I mean, sometimes, like Wes is people think he's the PA, but he's definitely the assistant director. And he'll tell the contestants, he's like, so when you reveal, whatever happens, okay? And because they've been with the photographer or whatever, the camera crew, like working to keep it together. So it's like, they know it's probably going to fall. They're well prepared for it. And I try to keep it like light, fresh, and funny. I'm not trying to like make somebody cry, because if somebody cries, we can't use that. And I'm not here trying to make content that they can't edit together. Because then we'll have to keep reshooting things.
a professional.
I try. Also, yeah, it doesn't feel good to be like, what you made was shit. And it's like, it's not shit. They've made something that they've never made before. It was hard. I'm screaming at them. Jacques is a highly respected pastry chef staring at them. Wes is a very attractive man who's telling them they have time left. There's a guest judge who knows who that, like, it's a lot of moving parts. And I fully understand people, buckling under pressure or getting upset with themselves for not making what they thought they could make.
Yeah, I mean, that's also like, I don't know, that's part of what's so great about the show, I think, is that it's like every single fucking food show, no matter who the contestants are, it's like people are being asked to do something insane. That's why we're watching, but it's the only one that kind of like owns that fact and is like, yeah, no, we told you this is going to be a really hard thing. You tried, it was funny, it was great. Like there's something neat about that. I think that's a really good kind of like ethos for life almost, is like, yeah, you tried to do something really hard and it didn't quite work out, but that's just because you were shooting, you were aiming high. I don't know. I think that's neat.
Yeah, I like it. It's a very fun job. I mean, sounds real corny to be like, I'm blessed. But I do feel very blessed that I get to host a show where they pretty much let me do whatever I want. And I have a really fun time at work, and I get to work with Jacques, and sometimes I get to eat nice things. A lot of the times I do not. But, that's okay. That's fine.
Well, final question, Nicole Byer. If there was one thing, either something that you ate all the time growing up or that you have had in a restaurant, be it Mastro's or otherwise, that you've really enjoyed, if there was one thing that you could snap your fingers and know how to make yourself just perfectly, flawlessly every time, what would it be?
Off sauce. I don't think I'm saying it right, but off sauce.
I think that sounds way righter than any French pronunciation I've ever attempted just by looking at it. French never sounds how it looks to me in my mind. I remember being a kid and like reading the word. I just thought I was aware that there was a word debris. And then I remember just reading, I was like, there's also this word that I keep reading that's derbis.
Yes.
Or debris or something. Yeah, and then finally somebody being like, that's debris, and being like, oh, okay. Also, I guess, why was I reading so much about debris? I have no idea.
Listen, sometimes you gotta just look up words and look at them.
So is it like because I think I was imagining like a super like dark brown like steak sauce. Is it like dark? Is it light? Is it like cream based? Like what, as far as what goes into it?
Cream based. And the ones that I like, it's like a kind of like a grayish color. It's like, it's not the most appetizing looking thing. I don't know how to describe it. I'm going to look it up. Okay. So yeah, it's like a light, creamy, grayish color. No, light brown. Like it's in between, like it's like light brown if you put a little white paint in it. And then it's like creamy, and there's whole peppercorns in it that populate it, and it's really tasty.
This is clearly a sauce that this like transcends like meat for you. This is the sauce is the thing.
It's like dipping French fries is so good in it. It's good. It's good truly on anything. I think it's an underrated sauce that people don't have enough at restaurants. It's you mostly get, it's like steak frites. It's like off sauce and frites or whatever. But I think more restaurants should do it. It's good on chicken. It's good on French fries. It's so good on broccoli. I fucking love dipping little broccolis in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
did you ever be a kid and pretend that you were eating like little trees?
My mother told me I was eating trees. I was like, I don't like this. And she's like, but don't you want to eat little trees? Don't you want to be a giant who eats trees? And I was like, of course I want to be a giant who eats trees. And I was like, oh, ranch is like snow. So I'll dip them in the snow and eat my trees. And she's like, whatever gets you through it. So yeah, I love pretending I'm a giant eating trees.
And may we and may we all continue into 2021 with the zeal of a giant eating tiny snow-covered trees. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
That is it. That is all for this week's episode of Stay for Dinner. Thank you so much to my guest, Nicole Byer. You can check her out on Nailed It, on Netflix, on her hilarious podcast, Why Won't You Date Me, available wherever podcasts are. Cast. My intro song was July 4th, 2004 by Jason Anderson. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Jason the Band. My interstitial music is by Advance Bass, aka the amazing Owen Ashworth. Advance_bass on Instagram, Advance Bass on Twitter. Check out his albums. They're so wonderful wherever you get music. Same is true of Jason. Jason has a huge and incredible catalog that I cannot recommend enough. My podcast art is by Sarah Beacon. That is Becan. Please check out her forthcoming comic book cookbook with Hugh Amano, both former guests of the podcast. It is called Let's Make Dumplings. It is the follow-up to their smash hit, Let's Make Ramen. You can follow me on Twitter at DC Pierson, DEECEE Pierson on Instagram, and check out my novels, The Boy Who Couldn't Sleep and Never Had to, and Crap Kingdom on they're on audiobook. If you like hearing me talk, I read them. They are available as ebooks and available as books. And that is also it for this podcast, at least for now, possibly forever. The archive of this show will be up indefinitely, so if this is your first time hearing the show and you like what you heard, check out the back catalog. There are 40 plus episodes of this, but with different recipes and different amazing guests from all over the map in terms of background. Some are comedians and some are authors, some are musicians, and some are like food policy people. I was and some are actual chefs. I was very, very lucky to have just an amazing panoply of guests contribute and agree to come on this show. I'm super indebted to all those people for taking the time. Thank you to you for listening. I also wanted to thank all the people who had a hand in making this show what it was, including my wife Haley for her encouragement, her ideas, her support, and her appearances on the show. Danielle Kramer and Stephen Ray Morris and the entire team at Exactly Right. Brian Baldinger, Jessica Gutierrez, and the entire team at Starburns Audio. Again, every single guest, you, the listener, and making this show has really meant a lot to me in the past year. And so thank you for being a part of that. If you enjoyed it or if it worked in your life for this period of time, thank you for letting me be a part of that. I really appreciate it. I never did come up with a catchy cooking-related show-ending catchphrase, so keep cooking and carry on cooking. Yep, that's why I never did that, because it sucks. Thanks. I'll see you around. Bye-bye.